Something's happening with this generation that most people aren't talking about. Young people right now aren't just curious about the future. They're searching for prophetic signs like it's built into their DNA. And here's what's strange. They're finding them. Not in the places religion told them to look, but in moments so subtle most adults walk right past them. If you've noticed the shift, if you've felt the urgency in the air, you're not imagining it. There's a reason why. Why prophecy feels different now. Every generation thinks they're living in the end times. That's not new. But what's happening in 2026 feels different because the search itself has changed. It's not just about believing anymore. It's about recognizing. Youth today grew up watching the world shift faster than any generation before them. They've seen pandemics, economic crashes, technology that feels almost supernatural. So when Scripture talks about signs and wonders, it doesn't sound ancient, it sounds current. The Bible warned this would happen. Not just events, but awareness. Joel 2:28 says, "I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy." Notice, it doesn't say they'll all become pastors or prophets by title. It says they'll prophesy, meaning they'll see, sense, and speak what's coming before others catch on. That's not religious language. That's pattern recognition on a spiritual level. Here's what most people miss. Prophecy isn't always about predicting the future. Sometimes it's about discerning the present so clearly that the future becomes obvious. And youth right now? They're picking up on things faster than the generation trying to teach them. The signs they're actually noticing. Let's get specific because this isn't vague spirituality. There are real patterns emerging that young people are tracking, and it's not what church programs prepared them for. First, the collapse of hollow systems. They're watching institutions that looked permanent start to crack. Not just governments or economies, but belief systems, cultural norms, even how people define success. What older generations call instability, youth are calling exposure. They're not afraid of things falling apart. They're asking what was holding it together in the first place. Second, the return to raw truth. There's a hunger right now for anything real. No polish, no performance, no fluff. That's why authenticity isn't just a buzzword anymore. It's survival. Jesus said in Matthew 24:11, "Many false prophets will appear and deceive many people." Youth today have a radar for fakeness that's almost supernatural. They can sense when someone's selling something even if it's wrapped in Scripture. They're not rejecting God, they're rejecting the sales pitch. Third, dreams and spiritual sensitivity are spiking. Go ask any youth pastor or campus minister. More young people are reporting vivid dreams, unexplainable peace in chaos, or moments where they just knew something before it happened. That's not coincidence. Acts 2:17 says, "In the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your young men will see visions, your young women will dream dreams." This isn't poetry. It's activation. But here's where it gets tricky. Not every sign is from God. That's the part no one wants to say out loud. Just because something feels spiritual doesn't mean it's holy. The enemy knows how to counterfeit. He always has. That's why discernment isn't optional anymore. It's the difference between walking into purpose and walking into a trap. What they're searching for but can't name. Most youth right now are looking for the same thing, but they describe it differently depending on who's asking. Some call it purpose, others call it clarity. Some just say they want to know what's real. But underneath all of it, there's one core question driving the search. Does my life actually matter in the bigger picture? Or am I just here watching everything unfold? That question is prophetic by itself, because it's the same question every generation asks right before God moves, right before a shift, right before something breaks open that was locked for years. The restlessness you're seeing in young people isn't rebellion, it's readiness. They're not running from God, they're running towards something they can feel but can't fully see yet. Scripture backs this up in ways that should make us pay attention. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." He has also set eternity in the human heart. Eternity isn't just a destination, it's a frequency, and youth are tuned into it whether they have the language for it or not. That's why so many of them feel out of place in a world obsessed with the temporary. The signs aren't just external, they're internal. The shift isn't just happening around them, it's happening inside them. And the ones paying attention are starting to realize they were built for this exact moment. Not by accident, by design, but recognizing the signs is only the beginning. Knowing what to do with them is where most people get stuck, and that's exactly what we need to talk about next. So, what do you actually do when you sense something shifting but don't have a roadmap for it? You start by refusing to numb it. Most people feel the pull and immediately distract themselves. Scroll harder, stay busier, drown it out with noise. That's the worst move you can make. Because what you're feeling isn't random, it's an invitation. Think about Samuel as a boy. He heard God's voice but didn't recognize it at first. He kept running to Eli thinking someone was calling him. But Eli finally told him, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" 1 Samuel 3:9. Samuel didn't ignore the voice. He leaned into it. That's the difference between those who walk into their calling and those who spend years wondering why nothing ever clicks. If you're young and you feel like something's coming, don't wait for permission to pay attention. God doesn't send engraved invitations. He sends restlessness, dreams, clarity in the middle of chaos, or a pull you can't explain. Your job isn't to understand it all up front. Your job is to respond. But here's what no one tells you. The enemy will try to twist that sensitivity into anxiety. He'll take what God is awakening and make it feel like a burden instead of a gift. You'll start second-guessing. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe I'm being dramatic. That doubt isn't wisdom. It's interference. Jesus warned about this in Matthew 13 when he talked about the seed in the soil. Some people hear the word, but worries and distractions choke it out before it ever grows. The enemy doesn't have to stop you from hearing God. He just has to keep you too distracted to act on it. That's why community matters more than ever right now. You can't walk this out alone. Hebrews 10:24 says, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds." Spur means to provoke, to stir up, to push forward. You need people around you who aren't intimidated by your sensitivity. People who can help you discern the difference between a divine whisper and your own spiraling thoughts. Find the ones who pray without performing. The ones who ask hard questions without shutting you down. The ones who've been where you are and didn't settle for surface-level faith. Those are the ones who will help you sharpen what God is placing inside you instead of dulling it with empty encouragement. Now let's talk about what this generation is actually being prepared for. Because it's not just about personal breakthroughs, it's about positioning. God doesn't wake people up for no reason. He wakes them up because there's work that needs them awake. Look at Esther. She didn't choose to be in the palace. She didn't ask for the pressure. But Mordecai told her, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther 4:14. Positioning isn't about comfort, it's about readiness. And right now, there's a generation being positioned in places most people aren't paying attention to. Classrooms, workplaces, social platforms, families that are falling apart, systems that are breaking down. You might feel out of place because you are. You were never meant to blend in with what's collapsing. You were meant to stand firm while others panic. That's not arrogance. That's assignment. But here's the part that separates those who step into it from those who shrink back. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's obedience in the presence of it. You're going to feel unqualified. You're going to wonder why God would choose someone like you. Moses did. Gideon did. Jeremiah did. And God used every single one of them anyway. The signs aren't just pointing to what's coming. They're pointing to who you're becoming. And the moment you stop waiting for everything to make sense and start moving with what you already know, that's when the shift becomes undeniable. You'll look back a year from now and realize the restlessness was preparation. The dreams were direction. The isolation was protection. The uncertainty was refinement. Nothing was wasted. It was all building toward this. So if you felt any of this, even a fraction of it, don't brush it off. Don't wait until you feel more ready. Don't let fear convince you that you're imagining things. God is moving in this generation in ways that won't look like the last one. And the ones who recognize it early are the ones who will walk furthest into it. The question isn't whether the signs are real. The question is whether you're going to respond while there's still time to prepare. Because what's coming isn't just for you to survive, it's for you to lead others through. And that starts the moment you stop doubting what you already sense and start walking like you believe it. If you felt something shift while hearing this, that's not an accident. The signs are already here. The question is whether you'll be one of the few who actually moves when God whispers, or one of the many who waits until it's too late. Type, "I'm ready," if this stirred something in you.